Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. I want to start off the presentation by going over some of our guiding documents, some of the things we try to accomplish as an organization. You've seen these before, the President's Task Force. Even though that's published in 2015, we've changed president since then. I think it's a good framework for us to continue to follow and for goals for us to try to attain with everything that we do. And of course, here's your city council goals, the things that you listed out for us that are priorities for you and the citizens and what the citizens have expressed to you. So a lot of these things we've tried to accomplish through the various programs we've had. For example, our partnership with Code and with streets and solid waste about dealing with the homeless encampments and clean them up and working on the T25 program to have a clean, healthy environment, not have an environment to employ some of the broken windows theories of policing there, having a clean environment to not contribute to crime. That's one of the big things we've done in this to get other employees who are not public safety employees involved in crime prevention. The other things we've done, we've worked really well with, appreciate the help that marketing and communications has done with us in crime prevention to get our message out there. We've done a couple of different campaigns, Drive Like Your Family Lives Here, the Take Lock and Hide program, very high profile messages that got out to the community to try to make it a better, safer place for people to live, work, and play. And our department mission statement, kind of some of the things we hope to accomplish there as well. Let me go back for just a second. One of the things here that I'm really proud of is the fact that our next door, when I got here in 2016, we had about 7,000 households signed up for next door. Now we're at 27,000 households, so we're getting it as a more viable communication platform for us, and I think that's going to serve us very well going forward. Some of the projects that we've had this year, we can see here the public service professionals, that's 100% funded, 100% complete. That was adding 2 more public safety professionals. And as a reminder, the public safety professionals are non-sworn employees, so it was a new position we created basically as a career path for the non-sworn, for the non-police officers. One of the things they expressed when I got here, we did a SWOT analysis with every member of the department, sworn and civilian in every job title, and the non-sworn, the civilian workforce had mentioned that there's not much of a career path here, detention officer or dispatcher, and that's pretty much it. And if you're dispatch, you could be a supervisor, but there was no manager. So we've created a manager position for dispatch. We created this PSP position, it's public safety professional, and they're able to go out and do things. They have far surpassed, they've done a great job. They have far surpassed my expectations about the workload they're going to take. They've only been really fully operational since November, and they've taken more than 1,500 calls off of patrol by going out to assist motorists on the roadway, to parking violations, things like that. Things that we would normally have to dispatch an officer to, they're able to go out to and resolve. And they help on traffic control on the freeways. The folks who've been selected have really taken it to heart, and they're doing an outstanding job. And they're increasing the patrol capacity by taking a lot of those calls that did not require a police officer presence to be there. Crime scene van is one that we're, a crime scene response vehicle that's still in the early stages, still working on that one. Digital case filing program is complete. That's where you authorized last year to hire an additional administrative person to help us meet our deadlines, our legally mandated deadlines to submit evidence with cases, the video evidence in particular, with the Dallas County DA's office. And so she's on board, she's working, it's rolling really well. The LPR system for the retail district is one that we still haven't completed. We have all the legwork done. There was a personnel change at the City of Dallas, they're the fiscal agent for the JAG, the Justice Assistance Grant that comes through there. And because of their not having a person in that position, it's an extended time has lapsed, and we have they're going to have to go back to council to redo the awarding of the money to us, the distribution of the money. But as soon as they get that to us, we'll be able to close that one out. The LPR system for the major intersection, citywide monitoring, major egress. These are 3 things that we made some progress on here, but I'd like to share with you a change of direction. If you remember, from those of you who were on the council when we first rolled out the 5-year plan, we wanted to put cameras at major points of ingress and egress to the city, and we wanted to do a citywide monitoring system. Again, on those places, public spaces where we have large crowds or we have lots of traffic. What we found is that that's really going to be cost prohibitive for the original design. It's going to be over $1 million to do that. But we've partnered with Public Works, the traffic management section of Public Works. They have traffic cameras at 70 intersections right now. We've talked about this before in the quarterly meeting, but that's really taken off. We are able to so far get to almost 50 of the intersections monitored, and we bought the milestone licensing for just $20,000, a significant change that's going to allow us, as we build out the traffic camera system, we can continue to buy licenses to allow us to record those intersections and go back for a look for criminal activity. But it also allows Mr. Holzapple and his crew the ability to go back and look if there's a major accident, a major traffic incident, they can go back and look at those contributing factors and that they can see. So it's a win-win for us in the city and for the taxpayers in general. So we're going to scale down the major egress monitoring system. What we're going to do, we're doing some analysis right now with GIS department. I've asked them for some help to look at the traffic patterns into the city. And I have a crime analyst who's doing some analysis, one of our 2 crime analysts, on when we arrest someone here, what home address do they give us, and look at how would they get from where they say they live to where they got arrested, and overlay that with these traffic patterns to see if we can identify. I think we'll be able to identify 4 or 5 major thoroughfares where we'll go ahead and spend the extra money and get the enhanced cameras and the LPRs, the license plate readers, in those intersections. So this is kind of a fire and adjust from our original 5-year plan, but I think it's going to work out better for us. NIBIN is the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. We've already had our first lead. That's the system, basically fingerprinting for shell casings for firearms. Just like our fingerprints are unique, the marks made on the shell casing as it's fired and ejected from a firearm, like whether it's a shotgun, a rifle, or a pistol, makes unique marks, and they can be traced back to the same weapon from different crime scenes. So we've had our very first lead. Our first lead was from a arrest we made here with a juvenile with a gun, and they were shooting it in the air driving through a neighborhood, and that gun was linked. That same gun was used in a robbery in Dallas at a convenience store where 3 people were shot. So we still haven't proven how this juvenile came into possession of that weapon from that, but we know these guns are crossing borders and crossing jurisdictions in the commission of crimes. And so it's a good intelligence piece. It gives us something to start working back from. And it helped Dallas and it'll help us. So, and also with this, before we decided to get our own system, this was a significant investment. We paid for it with seizure funds. But we have been dependent on the state crime lab in Garland. And they've notified us that they're not going to be able to do that anymore. So now that we have our system up and running, we're good to go. We can handle our own stuff. But they're not going to be able to handle the capacity. They have 40 of our guns they've already asked us to come get. We've already going to pick them up and bring them back and test them ourselves. So it's good that that's up and running and it's working well. We're just continuing to enhance our folks' expertise on the system. They've been trained already, but now get a little more experience with it. I think it's going to serve us quite well going forward. Okay, I'm only going to present today 2 of the indicators of our performance measures, rather, because we have over 20 of them, and I have a quarterly report coming up in August, so I didn't want to take up too much time today. But I know crime is important, and where we're at is important for everybody. So the 2017 numbers were down from 2016. Now these numbers still haven't been, I say, certified. I use that word loosely in that the FBI hasn't come out and said these numbers are correct. The numbers of crime are always correct. What we report to them, they have a different methodology for determining our population. And so the numbers of crimes per 1,000 population is going to be different based on what the FBI assigns us as a population. So they don't use the same one that we use here in the city. But based on what we use here in the city, this is our crime rate right now. And if you'll see, in 2016, we had an increase in violent crime. The violent crime is in the gray, and the property crime is in the dark blue there. Year over year, we always have 90% of the crime reported in the city is property crime, and roughly 10% overall of the crime is going to be violent crime. And that goes back and forth. You can see there's a little, but it's more like 89 to 11 or 91 to 9. It's pretty close in there. So 90% to 10%. So we're doing quite well, even though we've had an uptick in violent crime. And in the violent crime in 2016, the significant was two categories: there's robberies and aggravated assaults. Aggravated assaults, about 40% of them were domestic violence, about 60% were crimes of violence. That particular year, we had 19 reported road rage incidents where weapons were either pointed at someone or discharged at someone, and resulting in 33 individual victims of those reports. So that's what caused that spike in 2016. And in 2017, it was robberies. We were up a little bit in robberies, but that's crime there. The next one, I think this is a really important one for us to talk about. In our communications section, last year they dispatched 95,000 calls. They got over 200,000 calls into the system. But for the 95,000 calls that were dispatched, NENA, the National Emergency Number Association, I think that's right, they have a standard that they want 90% of your calls to be answered in 10 seconds or less. And you can see here we answered 99% of our calls within 10 seconds or less. And most of it is within 6 seconds there. The average ring time is 6 seconds. So they do a great job down in dispatch. And so I think that's something worth highlighting and letting you know about the hard work that's going on down there. Okay, for the 5-year personnel plan, this budget year, in the original plan, we're supposed to ask for 2 officers. We deferred that into the next budget year and 2 officers in this coming budget year. So we're going to ask for 4 officers still for that. In addition to that, our other budget offer is going to be for 3 police officers and then for 1 property and evidence supervisor, a non-sworn supervisor for our property room. I'm going to talk more in depth about each of these later on. Proposed budget, you can see our adopted budget for 2018, what was amended budget and our proposed. You see some increases there, 4.1%. Most of that is in our personnel services category, most of the increase, and due to salary increases to raises and to insurance costs, things like that. But it's there. And then the contract services, we had some increases. We had some issues there, changes there, because for the last year we haven't had anyone assigned to the DA task force, so our reimbursement for overtime from DA has gone down. But we got an increased reimbursement from MISD during that time. We also were in the midst of our 5-year replacement cycle for our bulletproof vests under supply, so that's causing some of the changes in supplies there. All right. These are our work orders, work credits rather, and for patrol and traffic. Most of that is from grants and traffic grant for DWI enforcement, seatbelt enforcement, speed enforcement, and reimbursement for the holiday task force from the mall. CID, again, that's reimbursements from the DEA for overtime on the task force. And then SRO, that's a full 50% reimbursement from the school district, from MISD. So our budget office, I mentioned earlier, we're asking for 4 officers for this fiscal year in accordance with the 5-year plan. The reason I even mentioned the 3 additional officers is MISD has requested. They built a new middle school that's coming online this school year, Lanny Frazier. They're asking for our current configuration as we have 1 officer at every middle school, and 3 of the 5 high schools have 2 officers each assigned to them. But two of the high schools, West Mesquite and Poteet, just has 1 officer each. And so the MISD is requesting 1 officer for Lanny Frazier and 2 officers each for the high schools to make each high school 5. So that's an additional 3 police officers. What I'm asking is for the 4, and then the 3 is, yeah, if we can, we can. If we can't, it's there. We can cover the needs with those 4 if we need to. The police property evidence supervisor, I just want to have more accountability. I moved the sergeant out of there last year to put them in the school resource program because we had 21 people total assigned to that unit with 1 supervisor. That's too large of a span of control to do any effective supervision, to deal with any use of force complaints or anything like that, to effectively supervise that many people spread out all over the school district, all over the city. So we cut their spending control in half and have 2 supervisors there. But that leaves me with not a supervisor assigned daily. The lieutenant over the detention services section performs the supervisory functions. There's some supervisory things that need to be done there. So we added that duty to somebody else. I'd like to have, and this also gives a promotional opportunity for someone inside the organization who is suited with the skill set to manage that operation. So, that's what we have there. So our capital request is we're going to want to replace 10 vehicles in patrol and have 2 additional vehicles added to the fleet for those 4 officers. If we get those 4 officers, because we have 10-hour shifts, we need 1 vehicle for every 2 officers. And so they can change out the vehicle from one shift to the next. CID, an additional vehicle there, an SRO, and a supervisor's vehicle, and MISD is going to pay half of that. So those are some of the personnel requests that we're looking at to make the most efficient use of the staffing. I believe that we must have those 4 officers, and the others would be, I know you have a lot of competing interests, but those 4 are going to be important. Technology request. Like I said, we're reevaluating the 5-year plan to see how we can make more efficient use of those things we're going to pay for with the major egress monitoring system and the citywide monitoring system. We'll continue that analysis going forward. Any questions?
Those are questions. Thank you, Chief. I know we this afternoon, this is primarily just your request. We've got HR in the morning, and we'll do a dive into the salaries and things like that. That's really not on his table. It comes from HR. So
yes.
Just want to make sure y'all kind of knew that. We will get into it heavily tomorrow morning. So questions? Yes, sir.
Chief, you wanted to add 2 more cars. I know that if a police officer lives in the city of Mesquite right now, they get to take a car home. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
So do they take home the car that they're driving all the time, or do you have an excess pool of cars that they take home? So if you hired 3 guys that all lived in Mesquite, would you need more than 2 cars then?
Well, yes, sir. We have what we call IA cars, individually assigned vehicles for those officers who live in the city limits. It's one of the perks of living in the city is to get a take-home car. But that's not until they get out of the academy and get off field training. We want to make sure they're going to make it through everything before we assign anybody. Even if I hire 3 officers next year, or of those 4 who live in the city, it would be next budget year before we'd have to consider looking at a vehicle for them. And that gives us time to plan for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Anything? Mr. Councilman.
Chief, great presentation. Lots of good things happening. I'm real proud. I know everybody else here is also. And I know that we are doing some community policing here and there because I see it on social media where some wonderful things have been happening, especially in neighborhoods with kids.
Yes,
I know you've got some recruits training, and we're getting closer, I think, to getting more staffed up. Do you think in the next 6 months or so, if we start hitting those numbers that we're wanting to hit, we'll be able to do a little bit more, assigning of a specific neighborhood that has maybe the highest crime stats or things like that, a couple officers that can rotate and just work that neighborhood for a period of time, and that type of community policing where they're not being pulled in other places. I know I talk about this every year, but just wanted your thoughts about the next few months about at least kind of getting our feet wet with that type of community policing.
Well, thank you for mentioning that, sir, because I do want to say something because he's sitting right here. The president of the NPA is right here, Officer Bruce Sales, and he and under Officer Eric Zimmerman had a Facebook video there because they ran into a couple of kids playing basketball out there at Tysinger Elementary School, and the basketball nets were missing from the goals, and they, with their own money, they purchased new nets and put them up and played basketball with the kids. And of course, we had Officer Winston Bowen, who had a viral video with him boxing with a kid in the apartment complex parking lot there. So there's a lot of good things going on with community policing. We have 17 people in training right now. We have 10 in one class and 7 in another. We're one vacancy away from being full right now. But 17 of those people are in training in the academy, and there's 3 additional ones in field training. So we have 20 people. That's almost 10% of our workforce in some sort of training capacity. So once that class of 10 is scheduled to graduate in October the 5th, and then they'll have at least 17 weeks of field training. And that's a number that we set as a goal, 3 5-week phases, and then 2 weeks of what we call ghost phase. They're proving they can ride by themselves, but they have a training officer with them just in case. But it's not uncommon for folks to get additional time. So it's not a hard 17 weeks. Some people, it's 20, some it's 21, maybe even a little longer. Because we want to make sure we give everybody the opportunity to succeed once we've invested that much money and time into them. So it's going to be some months. The group we just started in July, they're not going to graduate until January of next year. Then they have 17 weeks. So maybe by this time next year, we can start looking, because once they're completely off training and we're full, my position has always been that once we get full to the whatever number we have, we should have some capacity, ability to go out and do some more individual things. As far as assigning people to a specific beat every day, with days off and training and holidays and sick days and things like that, I don't know if we'll get there, but we're going to have people assigned to the same, and they're in a platoon with a sergeant, and we can at least keep those people in the same area. That's my goal.
No, and that's good stuff. And I know that we're not the size of department that can do, what maybe larger departments can do in terms of some really geographical community policing where officers can walk a beat and stuff like that. But, maybe I'm hoping eventually as we do continue to be more staff. We'll get there. I'm hoping that at least we can, if we have a particular area that has the highest, stats, that we could, for a period of time, assign some officers to just work that area where they do nothing but, where they don't have to get pulled away for other calls to other areas and stuff like that. We've talked about that before, so that's just always my wish list as we go forward. But great things are happening, and I appreciate all the hard work.
Yes, sir. I'm very proud of the organization and the work that everyone is doing here to make Mesquite a great place to live, work, and play.
Comments, questions for the chief? Very good presentation. We appreciate all you do and all your officers do.